Write a 150-word introduction for my YouTube video story on this title: Jealous Mom Beats Her Young Daughter to Death for Getting Pregnant for Stepdad. Start with a compelling hook that grabs the audience's attention and sets up the main storyline. The introduction should establish the tone, create suspense, and introduce the primary characters or themes. Make sure to naturally include keywords relevant to the topic, and leave the story on a cliffhanger or unresolved tension for the next part. Also, do not make any headings. Only write story in paragraphs. Also, keep the wording simple and natural tone. Also, make the script human-centric and don't give feel of AI generated. Also, don't create violated content which can aff the mother, once known for her kindness and strong bond with her daughter, had started to change after marrying her new husband. He was charming, attentive, and seemed to bring stability to their lives. But beneath the surface, there were whispers of tension in the household. The daughter, barely stepping into adulthood, often bore the brunt of her mother's growing frustrations. Small arguments turned into harsh punishments, and the warmth in their relationship began to fade. When the pregnancy came to light, it wasn't just the shock that shattered their fragile home. It was the question no one dared to ask aloud: who was responsible? The stepfather's role in the situation sent waves of unease through the mother's mind. Suspicion turned into obsession, and jealousy took over, clouding her judgment. The family's secrets grew heavier by the day, threatening to crack the fragility as the days passed. The tension in the house became unbearable. The mother's suspicions grew darker, and she became fixated on uncovering the truth. She would stare at her daughter with a mix of disbelief and anger, as if searching for answers in her every move. The once vibrant girl now walked on eggshells, unsure of what might set her mother off. Meanwhile, the stepfather remained distant, avoiding any confrontation. His silence only fueled the mother's paranoia, and the cracks in their marriage began to show. The daughter, desperate for support, confided in a close friend about her situation. She hoped for guidance but feared judgment. Her friend urged her to seek help, but the young girl hesitated, clinging to the hope that things would somehow improve. Behind closed doors, the mother's jealousy spiraled into resentment. Every glance, every word, every silence seemed to confirm her worst fears. She became consumed by the thought that her daughter's pregnancy wasn't just a betrayal. It was a threat to her own happiness. The family's once ordinary life now teetered on the edge of a devastating collapse, and the truth lurking in the shadows was waiting to emerge. Foundation they were standing on Dodic YouTube policy. The air in the house grew heavier with each passing day. The mother's anger had transformed into something more sinister, an obsessive need to regain control over a situation that felt like it was slipping through her fingers. She began searching her daughter's room when she wasn't home, looking for anything that could confirm her darkest suspicions. Old photographs, notes, even her phone. Everything became evidence in the mother's mind, each clue twisting her perception further. The daughter, feeling more isolated than ever, tried to keep her distance. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't avoid her mother's wrath. Arguments erupted over the smallest things, and the stepfather's passive demeanor only added fuel to the fire. His refusal to acknowledge the growing chaos left the daughter trapped between her mother's fury and his cold indifference. One night, a confrontation pushed everything to the brink. Voices were raised, accusations were hurled, and years of hidden resentment came spilling out. The mother's jealousy and pain boiled over as she demanded the truth from her daughter, her voice trembling with rage and betrayal. The young girl, terrified and cornered, found herself in a moment that would change their lives forever. Just as the shouting reached its peak, something unexpected happened, something that would shatter the fragile balance they had been clinging to. As the confrontation spiraled out of control, A sudden knock at the door froze everyone in their tracks. The tension in the room was so thick that even the sound of the door felt like an explosion. The mother glanced toward the door, her face a mix of panic and frustration, while the daughter stood silent, trembling in the corner. Slowly, the mother opened it, and standing there was a neighbor, concerned by the shouting that could be heard through the walls. Feigning composure, the mother dismissed the neighbor with a forced smile, assuring them that everything was fine. But as she closed the door, her mask slipped, and her anger returned in full force. Yet, before she could unleash her fury again, the stepfather finally spoke up. His words weren't calming, they were accusatory. He questioned her obsession, her irrational jealousy, and her fixation on their daughter. His tone was sharp, and for the first time, his indifference cracked, revealing frustration of his own. The room fell silent for a moment as the mother's gaze shifted between her husband and daughter. It was then that the daughter blurted out a shocking revelation, a piece of the puzzle that no one had expected. The truth wasn't what her mother had imagined, and the weight of it sent a ripple of shock through the room. What followed wasn't resolution, but an explosion of emotions that tore through the family, leaving everyone standing on the edge of an even darker discovery. The daughter's revelation hung in the air, leaving her mother stunned and her stepfather visibly uneasy. In a shaky voice, she confessed that the pregnancy wasn't her stepfather's, but the result of a brief, secret relationship she'd kept hidden out of fear of judgment. The weight of her words shifted the room's dynamic, but instead of relief, the mother's rage deepened. She refused to believe it, convinced that her daughter was lying to protect the man she now saw as her enemy. The stepfather, desperate to clear his name, finally broke his silence, admitting that he had known about the relationship, but chose not to speak up to avoid worsening the already strained household. His admission only fueled the mother's anger. She felt betrayed by both of them, her jealousy and insecurities now intertwined with feelings of humiliation and loss of control. In a moment of desperation, the daughter tried to show her mother proof, messages and photos that confirmed her story. But as she reached for her phone, the mother lashed out, consumed by emotions she could no longer contain. What followed was a heartbreaking confrontation that left the daughter in tears, and the stepfather stepping in to de-escalate the chaos. Just as the storm seemed to calm, the real twist emerged. Hidden among the daughter's messages was evidence of something far darker, her stepfather's inappropriate attempts to manipulate her under the guise of protection. The mother, now faced with undeniable truth, turned her fury toward the man she had once trusted. The tension in the room reached its breaking point, forcing the family to confront the damage they had done to one another. In the end, the daughter chose to walk away, vowing to rebuild her life far from the pain and toxicity that had defined her home. The mother, left to grapple with her guilt and the truth about her husband, realized too late the cost of her misplaced anger. The family's secrets had torn them apart, leaving behind a haunting reminder of the dangers of jealousy, silence, and broken trust. In the aftermath of that night, the family's fragile bonds were irreparably shattered. The daughter moved out, finding solace with a friend who had urged her to seek help. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of freedom and the chance to start anew, away from the chaos that had defined her home. She sought counseling to heal from the emotional scars and began rebuilding her life, determined to create a future filled with strength and self-worth. The mother, left alone in the house that once held so much promise, faced the painful truth about her choices. Her jealousy and misplaced anger had cost her the one relationship she should have protected the most. The stepfather, exposed for his deceitful behavior, quietly disappeared from their lives, leaving behind only the damage he had caused. Though broken, the daughter's story became one of resilience. In the end, she proved that even in the face of betrayal and loss, it's possible to reclaim your life and find hope again.